This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Models Memories Weekly, episode 94. Models and Memories is a show about nothing and is filmed in front of a live studio audience. This is a show where I talk about my painting, modeling, and wargaming experiences from the week. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Jay, you put out 3 YouTube videos a week. How could I possibly have more to say? Well, I do, and here goes. This week, I want to talk all about Games Workshop's new Models of 2022, a really fun thing that they do every single year, and why this year I feel like really missed the mark. But first, a word from our sponsor. Squarespace is the place with the squares, the all-in-one website builder and hoster that makes it easy to build the website of your dreams. Whether you want a clean, professional, and practical website to host your business and keep track of your analytics, optimize and synergize your enterprise, and push your career to the next level, or a more casual site to house your food blog, an original indie ukulele, pop, bluegrass, zen soundscape jams, Squarespace can do all that and anything in between, while not asking you to have any knowledge of coding or previous website design skills of any kind. With tons of award-winning templates to choose from, you can take that idea in your head of that perfect website and make it a reality. So head on over to Squarespace for a free trial, and when you're ready to rock and roll, use our code EonsOfBattle to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Before we get into this year's winners, I want to take a little trip down memory lane and look at last year's winners, because last year was absolutely stacked with amazing miniatures. Last year, we had, for Age of Sigmar, Krondis and Karazai, the dragons, the new Stormcast Eternal Dragons, so epic and perfectly dragony. They're maybe a tiny bit bland in my opinion, but still very, very cool and impressive miniatures with a huge size and lots of beautiful sculpted in detail. Then, plastic Death Core of Krieg. Coming straight out of left field, making everyone fall in love with Kill Team 2, the new Death Core of Krieg were amazing. And the hits just keep coming. Lord Croak, an absolutely awe-inspiring miniature, beautiful in every single way. I've seen dozens of great painters do amazing work with this miniature. Then we have Morven Val, Abbess Sanctorum of the Adeptus Sororitas, the High Lord of Terra herself, an amazing model in a Paragon warsuit, which is one of my favorite models from Games Workshop in recent memory. They didn't come out last year, I think they came out a year or two before, but Morven Val's suit looks amazing. Mosgrod Scragbad, the orc on the Great White Squig, another very large, very impressive, and very funny model, with like an engine sticking out of its torso, which somehow helps it to be a more dangerous or scary squig. One of the most popular models on all of Instagram, Sigvald, the prettiest chaos character of all time with his 16-pack abs? An amazing miniature. And then getting into the top 3, we had High Marshal Helbrecht, High Marshal of the Black Templar, and a lovely miniature. I like to think that people were actually voting for the little guy who was rubbing his sword and keeping it nice and shiny clean, but an absolutely jaw-dropping miniature, not just Mecha. Marco Frassoni has a beautiful video where he paints it up in like 4 hours to an absurd level. But then we get into the heavy hitters, number 1 and 2, and number 2. Everybody, wherever you are, get ready to applaud for the crab. Yes, the crab. The Duneclaw from the Elathian's Soul Raid, the Warhammer Underpants team. The crab. The crab is one of my favorite things to happen in all of the history of 40K and tabletop gaming in general. Everyone independently came together and said, that crab is the greatest miniature of all time. It came in second place, but I guarantee you it was in first place. But Games Workshop was like, we can't let a meme be our number 1 miniature of the year. So Games Workshop sneakily switched the places of those 2 winners, but we all know in our hearts that the crab was the best miniature of 2022, and what an incredible crab it was. But the actual winner was Be'lakor, the Dark Master, an absolutely jaw-dropping, awe-inspiring, beautiful miniature covered in chains and glowy bits standing on a space marine. It's just an unbelievably cool miniature. The original by Juan Diaz was a really nice metal and then fine cast miniature that was like really nice, and it had a lot of presence and character to it, but the new plastic kit is better. It's so cool. What a great year of miniatures. And there was so much other stuff. The new Necron Cryptex, all the new vampire lords and the vampires from the Soul Blop Bleep Blops models, like stacked year of awesome minis. And I do think that tons and tons of great minis came out this year too, but I think that let's just go through it. Coming in at number 1 for 2022 Miniature of the Year, Inquisitor Cartavolnus. A very nice model. Very nice, about this big. It's a tiny little thing. And I think this was a store birthday model, which is fine, but not that many people got a hold of it. Hopefully the people who wanted it got a hold of it, and nobody paid scalpers ridiculous prices online to get a hold of it. It's a perfectly nice model, but it's a little frustrating that like a winner of the best model of the year is not something that you can buy. I mean, you could have if you like got to your store on the day and then placed your pre-order and then were able to show up a week later and actually pick up the model when they arrived, but it's a very nice model, and I don't want to get too down in the dumps yet. Oh boy. Okay, number 2, Azra the Annihilator. Another exclusive miniature, this time to Warhammer TV. If you have a subscription to Warhammer Plus, you can pick this model or another model in Age of Sigmar, a really neat little like Chaos Sorcerer with a little band of misfits, these tiny little things. That's the model that I picked because I'm a subscriber, but it's a very nice model, and I've seen some people do amazing stuff with it. It's in a different art style than Games Workshop typically does. It's a lot more cartoony and it harkens back to some of the early, or not concept art, but the early artwork of Warhammer 40k, a lot of it when it was like pen and ink or even pencil. It's a very nice miniature. But once again, exclusive to people who want to subscribe to Warhammer Plus, which it's not that great a service, and I don't blame anybody who doesn't subscribe to it because it's a little dumb. I don't know. Next up, Alrock the Drowner. Beautiful mini. I really like this model. A friend of mine purchased this model as their first ever miniature for wargaming, and I totally see why. It is super characterful, super interesting. Everything for the Night Haunt is absolutely beautiful, and I think it is a solid pick for miniature of the year, or within the top 10 miniatures of the year. Next up, we have the Astra Militarum Army Set. Army sets aren't models. Army sets are collections of models, and I think it's a little frustrating that an army set is a winner or a contender for model of the year. Like, what are people voting for? Are they voting for the box, this particular grouping of miniatures, or were people voting for the troopers that come in the box, or the guns, the gun platforms, or were they voting for the new Sentinel model, or were they voting for the new Command Squad? Like, which miniature is the one that we're talking about when we're, say, the Astra Militarum Army Set? And I mean, you know, it was a voting poll, so people got to pick whatever they wanted. But I wonder if the Leagues of Votann had come out at the very end of the year instead of the Cadians, if the Leagues of Votann would be on this list instead of the Cadians, because when I went through the poll and I picked which model, there was no pictures. It was just a giant list of hard to pronounce names from Games Workshop. And so I didn't necessarily know exactly what I was voting for. And so I'm just a little skeptical of the Astra Militarum Army Set, and I think they should have at least broken it down into the individual models that came in that box so that people could vote for the model instead of the product, the army set. And speaking of army sets, the next one was HORUS Heresy Age of Darkness. Once again, a box that came with lots of beautiful miniatures, and I would totally expect something from 30k to make its way into top models of the year, but were people voting for the Praetors that came in the box? Were people voting for the Cataphractii Terminators, the new Mark 6 armor, the Spartan tank, the Contemptor Dreadnoughts? Like, which model from that box is the contender for model of the year? I don't really get it. I think it's dumb to have box sets be part of this, but I'm gonna say that it was the Mark 6 Beakies because they're probably my favorite thing in that box. So Mark 6 Beakies, thumbs up, pretty darn good miniatures. Next up, we have the Knight Abominant, the Chaos Knight. Total contender. This model is absolutely beautiful. I love the little vultures perched on top, all of the tusks and spikes and the weird little tentacle noodle arm thingy. It's a really cool model. I'm gonna have to pick one up and paint it one of these days. I really like the good guys, and I have a pair of regular Imperial Knights, but maybe the way I dip my toes into chaos is maybe some Chaos Knights, because I do love the idea of having an army that plays really differently from the standard units or the standard just infantry models that most Games Workshop armies are made out of. I do like a good giant, and the Chaos Knight is definitely one of the most beautiful models that Games Workshop made this year. Next up is the GOFF Rocker. And I'm in two minds of this because I would be disappointed if the GOFF Rocker didn't make its way into the top 10 list, but it was an exclusive miniature to the holiday season of this year. So, you know, when people look back on this list, they're gonna be like, that's a darn cool model that I can't buy because it was exclusive. But it is a lovely miniature, very characterful, very funny. I love the little squig amp that he's stomping on. I like to think that he gives it more stomps to make it louder or quieter. It's a very cute miniature. But now moving on to the good stuff. The top 3, Bayard's Revenge, the exclusive miniature for Games Workshop's 35th anniversary. Once again, a beautiful miniature, more of a diorama than an actual miniature, but another thing that people can't actually buy. Like, if I feel like Games Workshop's maybe using up a lot of their energy and power on these exclusive miniatures where those resources probably should be going into the really cool stuff that's gonna sit on the shelves for years and tempt people into the deep, dark, awful game that is tabletop miniature wargaming. But I totally see why it's here. Bayard's Revenge, a really cool miniature. I placed my order and presumably am waiting 120 days to get my copy because they probably have to manufacture a new one for me because I was really late to pre-order this miniature, but it's very cool. Coming in at number 2, the Slaves to Darkness Army Set. Once again, an army set. Which one of these is the miniature of the year? Is it the new Chaos Chosen? Is it the new Demon Prince? Is it the Ogroids? Which, like, all 3 of them? Is every single model in this box so awesome that they couldn't possibly separate them into which one is super cool and which one's just kind of a normal miniature? It's crazy to me that this is in second place. I mean, the models are neat, but I mean, we got the squats this year. I mean, number 2, the Ogroids. It seems, I don't know, a little weird to me. I'm sure there was no monkey business. I'm sure that this is what people voted for, but I'm very shocked. Leave a comment below if you voted for the Slaves to Darkness army set. I would really like to know. I could definitely see people being like, well, the Slaves to Darkness army set is the first place we're gonna be able to get the new Demon Prince. And the new Demon Prince looks really sick. So like people were voting for the Demon Prince for their 40k armies, but the only way that they could vote for it was in the Slaves to Darkness army set. I could definitely see that being the case. And that's why it's here at number 2. So interesting pick. And number 1, the Avatar of Khaine. Definitely the model of the year. I totally agree. I love this guy and his flaming knees. A really cool miniature. It's got the height. It's got the imposing presence. It's a giant miniature. Not that many really big miniatures this year, but this guy I think is a very solid pick for model of the year. I think it's definitely the strongest choice out of anything on this list. Maybe the Chaos Knight could maybe switch places with it, but overall, I feel like this list, which doesn't matter and is just a marketing thing from Games Workshop and has no influence on anything in the entire world, but I don't know. I feel like this year's model of the year top 10 was kind of lame. I mean, compared to last year, which had so many heavy hitters, this year's is just like, the new Imperial Guard sculpts are pretty neat. Like, there was no Lord Croak, this brand new miniature to show off the skinks who survived the destruction of the old world and made their way into Age of Sigmar and now have a beautiful centerpiece model to show for it. This year is like, the new Mark 6 models that are in plastic, they're, pretty darn good. So, I don't know. I made a little list of my own. It's not a 10 list, it's just my top 3 picks. And you'll all disagree with me, but I wanted to pick things that I didn't see in any of these lists, and I didn't see in anybody else's list, just models that I really wanted to talk about that I don't think got what they deserved this year in terms of excitement and enjoyment. Coming in at number 1, I'm already cheating just a tiny, tiny bit. The Primaris Ancient, the new plastic multi-part Primaris Ancient kit. Technically, it was shown off incredibly late last year, like December 27th, but I don't think you could actually purchase it until this year. So I'm counting it as this year. And yes, it's a boring ass Space Marine, but I love these banners. I play Black Templar. I love iconography and flags. And this model actually comes with 2 full flags. So if you buy this box and you have 1 extra Space Marine body floating around, and let's be honest, we all have a couple extra Space Marine bodies floating around, you get 2 Primaris Ancients. And even if you don't want an Ancient in your army, I think you should have a couple of guys hanging around with flags. That's what I think I'm gonna do when I get this box, is I'm gonna have maybe 2 of my regular intercessors are gonna just be holding flags because for the Emperor. I think that they're absolutely beautiful, very awesome flags, sculpted in detail, but nicely sculpted in detail, which will make it very, very easy to paint. I've done a few free-handed flags in my day, and they always take hours and 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 hours. But with the sculpted in detail, I think that they're gonna paint up really, really quick and look absolutely lovely, just as some little focal points sticking out of my sea of dark gray Black Templars. So Primaris Ancient, technically a model from 2022, and it is my 3rd place for model of the year. Coming in at number 2, the Brookire Thunderkin Thunderpants. If anybody has seen that movie, I love you. The Brookire Thunderkin are amazing models, mech suits. I love a good mech suit. These guys give me huge Matrix vibes. And out of all the mech suits that Games Workshop has made, these look the most practical or realistic. I just love the squat bodies with these like extensions to their legs and arms so that they can hold these probably cannon-toting heavy squats. I think that they're gravity guns. Really, really cool models, and it makes sense to have these mech suits so they can carry these impossibly heavy and large weapons into battle. And they all have these cool goggles. I mean, it's straight up the Matrix. I love these miniatures, and I think that they would look so good in a squat army. I was lukewarm on the squats when they came out, but after reading the codex and reading the lore, I really, really like them a lot because they feel a lot more science fiction-y than a lot of the forces of 40K. Like 40K is a lot more fantasy than science fiction, but the squats are absolute science fiction. They use AI to solve all their problems. They live near a black hole, and that's why their bodies are shaped the way they are, and their technology is created the way it is. Everything is tubes and armor panels and rivets and grease. I absolutely love the squats, and my favorite squat unit is the Brookire Thunderkin. And coming in at my model of the year, the new Chaos Possessed. This is the model that I voted for when I went through the poll on the Games Workshop website. These models are gorgeous. They're gross and disgusting. I love John Carpenter's The Thing. Not so much the remake in 2011, it's fine. But these guys are so flippin' scary looking. I mean, they are a perfect amalgamation of 50% evil Chaos Space Marine and 50% flesh. Like, they're really, really creepy and gross. Each one has a little something unique and special about it. These are like Chaos who just have like a parasite, a demon living within them, and every time they take a wound, an even more deadly implement just comes out of their body and is ready to stab and slash and constrict. They're really, really gross and lovely. And I really hope that Possessed are a unit for the Death Guard, because I collect Death Guard, and I would love to paint some of these guys as like disgusting, sticky Death Guard Possessed. But These models are amazing. I really, really love them. And once again, I remind you that they used to look like this. Yes, they were horrible. I mean, they were probably good for 2001, but man, did they have an incredible, incredible glow up, because these models are super cool, and I think anybody would love to have them in their collection, where the old models looked like something that's an action figure you might buy in like the early 2000s. I mean, they almost look like Ghostbusters, the animated TV show villains. Like, they're kind of weird and creepy, but these guys take weird and creepy to a whole nother level. They're just all pointy, and I love them. They're my pick. Number one of the year, Chaos Possessed. It was really hard to pick between the Chaos Possessed and the Torments, because the Torments are also really gross and creepy, but gotta give it to the Chaos Space Marines. So Games Workshop, if you're listening, and I know you're not, next year, leave out the boxes. I think it's fine to have the limited edition models, even though it makes it kind of lame, because when you take a trip back through memory lane, you can't actually buy any of the models on the list. But at least break up the army set so that people can vote for the actual model they think is really cool, and not the product that is pretty cool. I don't know. It's fine. Everything is fine. But yeah, those are just my thoughts. And Games Workshop showed off some of the new models that they're going to be coming out with in the next year in silhouette, trying to be all sneaky, and those are a little iffy too, in my opinion. A first glimpse at next year's model, we very, very clearly have a normal Space Marine with the weirdest gun I've ever seen. And boy, does it look rough in silhouette. Like, it's got an ammo chain running to it, so presumably it fires bullets or bolts, but it's got like balls coming out of the front of it, like 4 balls sticking out. It's really, really weird. Like, it looks a little bit like maybe like a net gun or something that I've seen in like some video games, but man, is that a bizarre looking gun. And I am not at all opposed to Primary Space Marines getting some new kits. I really liked most of the Space Marine stuff, although that Space Marine Codex is getting really, really, really full. I mean, basically we have the entire old range of Space Marines, which was already the largest range of miniatures in all of Games Workshop. And then we added an entire new army with the Primary Space Marines, and they have really cool stuff like the Hellblasters that are like your anti-heavy, the Annihilators that can melt anything, the Eradicators who with their, I think I got some of these names wrong, but they got the Melta guys and the Plasma guys, and the bolter guys, and the sneaky guys, and the sniper guys. Like, I feel like all of the gun options are kind of already done, except for maybe missile launchers. I would love to see some sort of a unit of missile launchers. Probably not just 10 regular intercessors holding missile launchers. It would be very HORUS Heresy, but it doesn't really feel right for 40k. And it would be a little bit weird, like, just 10 guys with these giant missile launchers on their shoulders. But man, I wonder what Games Workshop is doing with this fugly gun. It's really, really bizarre looking, and it seems like they have some sort of like a security camera on their shoulders. It's very weird. I can't wait to see what this model looks like revealed, because unless it's gonna look kind of bad, maybe, unless they turn the lights on and reveal the model and the silhouette is completely different. Yeah, I don't know about this one. Looks really weird. But after that, they showed off a new, almost certainly Tau Commander Farsight model, which it looks like Commander Farsight has gotten a little bit bigger, and it looks like it has the sword, the scissor blades from Kill la Kill, the anime. I'm sure it'll look amazing. All the Tau stuff always does. It looks really cool. I like the sculpt detailing in the base, and that sword. Can't wait to see that sword, and I can't wait to see a bunch of people paint it candy red and have it look like the anime. But yeah, I love Commander's Farsight. The Farsight Enclave is one of the coolest factions in all of 40k, so I am very looking forward to hopefully this year being a Xenos-packed year, because the next one is a normal-looking Dark Eldar. Yeah, a very, very faithful Drukhari, just a Kabalite warrior. And I don't want to sound down on it, because I really like the Dark Eldar, and I'm probably going to collect the Dark Eldar army. But if this is a new miniature and we're getting like some new Kabalites, it looks a little bit too faithful, in my opinion, to the old Kabalites. I felt that way a little bit about the new Eldar, what are the normal Eldars just called? Eldar Warriors, regular Eldar Warriors. Everything about the new kit looks better than the old kit, but I think just the design, the classic design of the Eldar is a little dated and ugly. And so when they were very, very faithfully recreated and, every line sharpened and their thong-looking underwear really crisp and clean, I wouldn't have minded a little bit of a redesign, because I think the Eldar look really, really good in the artwork, but in miniature form, in Games Workshop's 28mm heroic scale with the big heads and the big hands, look a little silly. But we have a Kabalite warrior with, it looks like one of the vultures from that sits on top of the Chaos Knight. So in theory, it could be a Beastmaster, although I would assume that the Beastmaster is going to be on top of one of those like little Green Goblin jet skis, or literally jet skis, like not on the ground, but in the air. That was what I would think a Beastmaster would be on. And so this guy just seems to be regular on foot. And so I would think that this is maybe some sort of a Kabalite. Although the Kabalites are still looking pretty dang spiffy. So I don't think that they really are in need of a refresh, but yeah, it's good to see some Xenos getting some good representation. Hopefully, I would love to see the Tau get a little something, the Dark Eldar, the Drukhari get something, maybe even Genestealer Cult. Genestealer have gotten a trickling of units here and there, but I think there's definitely some stuff that they're missing. Like a lot of medium-sized vehicles, really all they have is the Sentinel, and I think that they could use a couple more medium-sized things. I guess they also have like the Rock Runner and the bikes, but maybe it's just because Genestealers are regular humans, and so they're just so tiny and piddly. But man, if the Genestealer get to use the new Rogel Dorn tank, I might have to buy a pair of those because they're really, really cool looking. Wasn't the Rogel Dorn tank this year? How is that not Model of the Year? How did the new Cadian box win out over the Rogel Dorn tank? I mean, that model is sexy. And I mean, the new Cadians are fine, but the Rogel Dorn tank, jeez. So yeah, really, really cool new Commander Farsight, really cool new Dark Eldar, and a Space Marine with something in his hands. I don't know what to think about that. It's also great that, I mean, this is how 40K does everything, and I don't care. I like the silliness, but that gun is like the size of him, and he's just kind of got it held up like James Bond in the poster. Oh, which movie is that? Quantum of Solace, where he's got the UMP. But this guy's got the same pose, but his gun is the same size as his entire body. It's just kind of funny. So yeah, Games Workshop showed off some new miniatures coming to 40K in the next year, and I am very excited for most of them. We'll say most of them. This year is looking like it's gonna be a really fun, exciting year of wargaming, but you know what is even more fun and exciting? That's right, our Patreon. Over there, we have new monthly terrain packs. This month, we have the Dark Factorum, a grim dark factory full of blood and steel that comes in over 75 components. And to new subscribers, we have a welcome pack that includes Dawn of War-inspired Space Marine, Imperial Guard, and Eldar terrain, all hosted by Comics, Games, and Things. We make weekly exclusive videos where we take a look at our patrons' minis and give them some ideas and critiques of how to improve their painting. We host live Discord hangouts, and we have painting guide PDFs. And a new tier where you can get your name on one of my Space Marines for the Black Templar Crusade. Games Workshop showed off a whole bunch of stuff, and they teased a whole bunch of stuff, but I'm still waiting for stuff that I can actually buy. But I also have tons and tons of miniatures that I really need to get to the painting bed. Leave that in.